Yeah, guy, David. Oh my. David, it's October 19th, and we are in the middle of it. You're listening to the Spit podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass. We talk all things surf. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Scott. Great to see you. We were talking about the waves pumping in North Carolina in September, but oh my, the waves have been pumping around here now.
That is the lead, right? Along the California coast. Yesterday, it was opening day in Northern California. The El Nino winter of 2023, 2024 is upon us, and it's mid-October, as I mentioned yesterday, pumping in Northern Cal, Ocean Beach in San Francisco, Maverick, Santa Cruz, all the spots and all the spots in between those spots were solid pumping. I just finished watching Powerlines Productions YouTube account, Eric's YouTube account there with footage from Mavericks yesterday, opening day, and it was exciting. And there was a two-wave hold down. I don't know if you watched it, but Steve Rice had the season's first, probably the first two-wave hold down, and that was a scary situation where Steve's board was tombstoning, and they're videoing. They're like, "Uh-oh, he's not coming up," and it's a two-wave hold down. And thank God, immediately the Mavericks rescue crew, Drake Stanley and another guy moved in and picked him up, and he was, by the time they got to him, he was on the rocks. It was a scary situation, but he ended up being okay. But all the incredible rides of yesterday, and the pumping surf at Mavericks on the Powerlines Productions YouTube channel, so you want to check that out if you're into it. And then things are starting off a little bit slower here in Southern California here on this Thursday, but don't be surprised, as it's going to be getting big here throughout the day. The swell's filling in. Of course, it won't be like it is up there north of Point Conception, but we're going to have plenty of solid head high to overhead waves throughout the day and into tomorrow, and long period swell too. So it's a bit inconsistent here to start off, but this is it. It's upon us, mid-October. And oh, by the way, there's south swell in the water as well. So everybody has a bit of swell stoke, a bit of swell anxiety, a bit of what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? What are the tides doing? What's the wind doing? Which the wind's a little bit off here in Southern California, and it's supposed to, the conditions are just a bit dicey, but not too bad. It's not horrible.
Well, I was going to say yesterday was super, super fun. I was down in your area actually, and fall conditions can be good throughout the day. We generally deal with winds midday or whatever. But yesterday was like, I had a break in between appointments. It was midday, drove down to the beach, and it was like sheet glass, A-frame peaks, guys getting tubed left and right. It was kind of wide open in terms of, it wasn't that crowded. And I'm just like, man, this is fall. This is exactly, the water's not frigid yet. It's kind of,
Warm.
62. Yeah, exactly. Maybe. And just so fun, and it was still building throughout the day. So it was kind of getting bigger, but comboed up a little bit, just enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was super, super fun.
Yeah. And we get those, especially it's weird, even south of Trestles in the San Onofre, San Clemente area, we get just glacier conditions. Those northwest winds turn into basically glassy. It's been glassy down here, David, for probably a week straight, all day, more or less all day long. But we are getting some dicey winds. That's changing a bit here today, and for sure tomorrow and into the weekend, there's going to be a little bit more ruffle. But it's a north wind, which isn't a northwest wind, which isn't too bad. It's not the dreaded south wind. So there will be some crumble on the waves, but so much swell that everyone will be psyched.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't see any of the Maverick stuff, but I saw a bunch of the Hawaii stuff from even 48 hours ago. Pipe is on, Jaws turned on, Albie Layer this would have been the wave of the winter for any other winter, because it was that level of swell, and he rode it just flawlessly, got a crazy tube. And it's opening day. And I was like, man, this must be recycled footage from a previous year or something. Nope. Opening day at Jaws, and absolutely dominating.
Yeah, you're right. I've been keying into Pipeline too. It's so great that this early in the season, the swells are from the west because it pulls sand off the reef there. Things are already getting cleaned up as far as the sand and stuff. And wow, Sunset Beach, pumping, VLAND, all the spots, and clean, pretty clean, pretty good conditions. And yeah, so Hawaii's happening, and there's more swell on the way. The jet stream has dropped down, and you know, Mark Sponsor over there at Storm Surf does a great job of sort of explaining how things work. And when that jet stream drops down and we get in, you know, pretty powerful winds in that jet stream, it helps to basically set up the low pressure systems on the surface. Those jet stream winds at 30,000 feet, but they kind of steer what happens at the surface level where the low pressures are. And so when that jet stream is lower, that means the surface pressure, low pressures are going to be lower down, closer, more westerly directed swell energy. And then you couple that with warm water headed from east to west, and you get a fueling of the atmosphere, and man, things take off and spin up a lot of low pressures in the Northeast Pacific. And that's what we're looking at early on here. Now, look, things can change. I'm not here to hype some season that's going to happen, but what should be noted is that all of the markers are in place for more storms to be forming, you know?
Well, it's goes without saying, but it is worth kind of reiterating that you see John, or let's say Nathan Florence throughout the year, traveling the world, scoring incredible surf. It's all exciting. But when he posts a clip of him and John at Pipe 2 days ago on John's birthday, it is the pinnacle of the year. It's like whatever crazy wave he got at Eileen's in the middle of the year, or wherever else, and you're like, this is crazy. Once they get to Hawaii, it's like, oh man, whatever you learned around the world, you need to combine all of that and put it into everything right now on this day. Because Pipe opening day, not only tons of like raw swell, but it's unruly. You know, it wasn't, there were perfect waves out there, but I mean, it was unruly in between those. And you didn't know if it was going to be perfect when you're taking off. So there's really kind of some wonk in the lineup. And when they navigate one successfully, it is the pinnacle of surfing. That's it.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. It's something that we may talk about later, that we've talked about before, but it's man versus nature, which is what makes it so exciting. And it's on, you know, there's just seems to be a lot of excitement, but also excitement that's has a backdrop of validity because of the El Nino systems that are in place.
Completely. Well, Vans also posted and released that they are going to be holding the Pipe Masters once again. They did not release any information about what the contest format and criteria is going to be, but at least it's going on. I think it's the opening window is December 8th, as it usually is, 8th to the 20th. Yeah. So that's something that we can keep tabs on too. See if they return to their old format, or if they try to get freaky with Stab again and do something weird.
Yeah, that's exciting. And frankly, as I've been watching Hawaii the last 3 or 4 days, I've got to admit, I'm kind of disappointed that there's not a Triple Crown. Like, I know the locals there are probably stoked that there's no contest really, except for one coming up in December, but as an end user consumer of you know, this, you know, that those surf contests, and you and I have been watching those contests for decades, and I know they've been gone for 4 or 5 years now, but it's unfortunate that there's not all the top surfers in the world surfing an event at Haleiwa, an event at Sunset Beach, an event at Pipeline, even before we get into the new year. You know, like, this season just feels like a season of competition for me. And now it's a little bit void of that. It doesn't mean we're not going to get a ton of really great footage. But yeah, anyway, I'm just missing that a little bit. And I guess every fall we sort of miss that.
Yeah. One kind of tangential, thank you, story. Billy Kemper going on Instagram and blasting Hawaiian Airlines for not letting him fly with his heavy board bag. Did you see this?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
This is good. What happened? There's a lot. You've got me wanting to go check out John and go check out Billy Kemper and check out Albie Lair
That's
on
where all the
Insta.
news comes from.
I've been sort of off Insta, but
Well, good for you. How's that going, by the way?
it's going great.
I'm jealous. So Billy got on selfie mode while he's like at the terminal still, or in his car out in front, and probably should have taken 30 or 40 minutes before he went to Instagram with his complaint. But he's heated, and basically he's said Hawaiian Airlines needs to make accommodation for surfers. I mean, the reality is surfing is, Hawaiian. It's built into the culture. It's in the DNA. And he had a board bag. He was trying to get from Oahu to Maui, 25-minute flight for opening day at Piahi. He has a board bag with 2 boards in it, and it was over the 100-pound limit it was over the 100-pound limit. So he goes, "Can I just pay a fee?" And they're like, "Nope, you cannot fly with these. You can leave your boards behind if you need to." He's like, "What? How about," so he takes a bunch of stuff out of the board bag, whatever other things he had in there in addition to the surfboards, and it came down to 102 pounds. He's like, "Okay, we're at 102. They're like, "Nope." He's like, "I will pay the overage fee." And they're like, "Nope." They wouldn't let him do it. So he got in his car, drove around the airport a little bit, went over to Southwest Airlines, 102 pounds. They charge him an extra baggage, overweight fee, paid it, got on the flight, and got out of there. And so he takes to Instagram and basically says, "What the hell? Hawaiian Airlines? I have to fly Southwest?" And the woman at the counter was saying it's illegal to fly with something that's that far overweight, as if it's like a risk for,
like an FAA regulation that can't be overcome or something.
Right. But he's like, you make that accommodation for golfers, you have built into your policy that you just charge an overweight fee, at that point for golfers so what's the deal with, why are you anti-surfers is what it feels like. And so the comments section lights up with a who's who of Mark Healy, Shane Dorian, everybody else saying, yeah, Hawaiian is notorious for not making an accommodation. So it seems to be bad business considering Hawaii's and surfing's kind of cultural connection. But what I was I wasn't laughing about it, but that seems to all be legitimate complaints from those surfers who have experienced that, right? But I'm like, 2 boards, 100 pounds? And I know they're guns, right? But our guns aren't 50 pounds each. The math doesn't add up. Something is amiss.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, what's a board bag weigh? A board bag let's say a board bag weighs 20 pounds, just for the sake of argument.
A giant one like that, maybe.
Yeah, a giant one like that's probably 20 pounds, right? It's probably not even that, but let's just say it's 20. And then the boards, let's say their boards are 20 pounds each.
Right.
We're at 60.
Exactly. I have a feeling Billy had 4. He's doing the old thing where it's like there's 4 boards in there, and he's like, "Nope, there's 2. Don't open it."
Who knows?
Yeah, I know. But he was heated. Anyways, it was a little, yeah.
Sounds like some good content. Angry big wave surfer.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing people were lighting him up about in the comments too, are just like, dude, this smacks of just like, you had nothing else to complain about. Your job is surfing. You already are not allowed to complain at that point, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, look, couple of other things that are happening on my radar here that might make you throw up in your mouth a little bit, but I'm going to go with it. And that is that a development company, what were you going to say?
What a setup. What a setup. I'm so eager to hear where this goes.
The Ocean Sports Development Company is back on the surf park map after lighting up search engines with plans for an Orlando, Florida wave pool. This project, David, would include a 15-acre tank, and it includes a playground, volleyball pavilion, surf shop, and more. The company behind the proposal, this Ocean Sports Development Company, is promoting Greg Weber's wave technology and looking to make a wave pool surfing a standardized competition circuit around Greg Weber's wave pool. And David, I think you know where you and I stand on this. If your competition is not in the ocean, I do not care, because the man versus nature ideal, which David, you have so properly helped to excavate and highlight, it is paramount, and it supersedes all other reasons for having a surfing competition.
Yeah.
And I believe, as has been proven out with the wave pool on the WSL tour, that the core surfing enthusiast will not care. Now, when I was a kid, we watched the Pipe Masters, and I was at Pipeline and the Duke event at Sunset Beach or Waimea or Laniakea. And the reason that the ABC sports executives back in the 1970s gave the green light on broadcasting these events was this man versus nature ideal. And that ideal, which is the underlying backbone of all surfing competition, is more relevant today than it has ever been. Now, again, from a surfing standpoint, you and I, we love wave pools, and this looks like fun, and I want to go surf it. But competitively, this is a non-starter. And I certainly hope that the Olympics at Teahupo'o this year get pumping waves, and that it's not 3 to 5 feet, because I'm afraid that the 2028 LA Olympics is looking to a wave pool in hopes of a more consistent outcome, and that will certainly be disappointing.
Well, yeah, the idea of building the wave pool and hinging the kind of sale of and build out of it on a contest to come down the road is a total non-starter. Like, that is just a misunderstanding of everything.
Exactly.
The wave pool has legitimacy, of course. The wave pool is recreational, it's fun and all that. But I've been to, the main wave pools that exist and surfed them. And if you told me tomorrow, and as much fun as I had, and you said, look, we're going to put the best surfers in the world there tomorrow, come out, watch it, or watch it online or whatever, I'd be like, there's no draw there. Like, I am curious to see who's going to do some crazy tech trick in it, I guess, and I'll watch that in the highlight reel. But the idea of like sitting through and watching a competition, or going out to the venue, dealing with parking, dealing with crowds and all that, and that there's like no appeal there at all. It's akin to going to a soccer game on Saturday, like, or a high school soccer game or something like that. So you're right. There's no appeal. The only draw is watching something that you and I would never ever venture into, and watching experts challenge it and confront an innate human fear, essentially.
Well, this Ocean Sports Development Company, they've acquired Greg Weber's wave technology, and their whole purpose is, at least according to this press release, is to advance surfing as high school, collegiate, and an Olympic sport. And they plan to build 30 stadiums. That's their word.
Wow.
30 stadiums in the
Wow.
next 20 years. And I'm with you. My whole thing is like, investor beware if they're saying you should invest in this because we're going to get broadcast rights and it's going to be an incredible TV watch. I may invest if it makes sense from a like $100 an hour, 100 surfers a day or whatever, like if it pencils out as just a recreational location, okay, yeah, but 30 stadiums in the next 20 years to help advance high school, collegiate, and Olympic sport, I don't know.
Here's the deal. Let's say if it's in addition to, like, if you have the, Australian, whatever it is, high performance training academy, where the surfers are surfing snapper and D-ball every day. And then in addition, going into the gym, doing some cross training, and then getting 3 waves and hitting an air section and trying to perfect their air technique so that they could go out at D-ball tomorrow and then do it in the ocean. There's an element there that makes perfect sense. But if you are training up kids in middle America in these wave pools and thinking that is the method and the path to them earning a title in the stadium, I think that's a non-starter. And that surfer who learns that way, who then books a trip to Hawaii is going to get smashed on the reef in Hawaii because they didn't learn about the ocean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it actually brings up another question that I have for you, which it sounds like you may have answered, but look, we've seen wave pools already as a training device, specifically Waco. Waco has been a great opportunity for guys to go out and train. And you could even argue probably the urban one in Melbourne and some other ones, the one in Europe, wave pools. What's the one in
Wave Garden.
Wave Garden? Thank you. So are these really legitimate training locations? Because when I think about massive airs and incredible stuff that we've seen, I think about guys in the ocean. I think about guys in Maui specifically. I think about Matt Miola, like the guys that are doing insane stuff. The first insane stuff we saw Jordy Smith do 20 years ago was at Macaronis. It's.
You're right.
I'm not so sure. I don't know if I actually buy into the fact that these pools are training devices.
You're totally right, because what it does teach people to do, maybe at most, is a standard air reverse that every NSSA kid can already do on a knee to waist high wave. But the airs that you're talking about that are groundbreaking require a big section to hit, and those pools aren't serving up the big section.
Well, I think there were probably people that would say, hold on. We've seen some insane stuff happen at Waco, and they're probably right. I simply can't pull one out of midair and go, yeah,
I think
JK did this, or this little girl, I saw this little girl, Aaron Brooks, do that, or what. Like, I'm sure that happened, but I don't think it translates.
Okay. Well, I was going to say Cruz Denofa doing the backflip thing,
right?
Front side backflip or backside front flip, whatever it was. I've seen a proper kind of Flynn Novak backflip, but again, that was Flynn Novak doing them 20 years ago at Rocky Point. I think of, Jacob Zekley doing a Superman thing, which we've already seen before. Mason Ho doing that as well. So you're right. I mean, we've seen them in the ocean. We've seen better versions of them in the ocean. I think the training aspect that maybe they're talking about is the consistency. You can go out there and hit the ramp 30 times in a row.
Yeah.
But I guess more to the point is, I don't think that's really what helps you become the best surfer. What helps you become the best surfer is the randomness in the ocean and learning how to train your body to react and anticipate the randomness. And then when you get that moment, when you're able to kind of apply, that's where the magic happens. But if you're just aiming for consistency, it becomes robotic.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned airs in the ocean, and you mentioned the Vans Pipeline Masters. And do you think that the lack of a mention of a format means that the remission of any mention of an air section at the end, that like they did last year for last year's Pipeline Masters format, do you think that that's gone? Do you think that they would have come out already and said, hey, we're doing it just like we did last year?
I think, yes. I think that is, it will be a revert back to the old format. And not mentioning anything probably is an indicator of that.
Yeah. Well,
Thankfully.
look, I for one, I don't know about, I for one am okay with coming out of a 10-point ride and then busting an air.
It's
I'm
already
okay
a 10.
for, huh?
It's already a 10.
I know, but that's my point. Like, I'm okay for leaving room for that. What do you, no, I think last year I argued against this.
I mean, look, if
but don't you want to see a guy come out of a perfect 10 and then do it? Wouldn't you be like, oh my God, on top of all that, he put, strawberries and whipped cream on the pie there at the end. That's insane.
Yeah, they're already going to go for that. John's going to go for that. Mason Ho does do that. And Baron Mamiya and Eli Hanneman, that is what they're aiming for.
Yeah.
But if they get a quote 10-point barrel ride and don't do the air, the judges should not score them an 8-point ride, because the air was factored into the judging format prior to the event.
Right. That's interesting.
So,
yeah.
What else? Oh, I know what I was going to say. Murdoch Swords, our good friend Scott Murdoch, who's been to the Boardroom Show in the past and actually brought you oolong tea 5 years ago at the Boardroom Show.
That guy's thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I'm a big fan of his Instagram account.
Yeah, well, Scott emailed or DM'd me and he's like, look, it could be that Thundercloud in 2012 at Cloudbreak is what kind of initially broke the ASP model at the time.
Yeah.
And in that, the waves, it was during the waiting period at Cloudbreak 2012, and the waves were so big, there was so much swell that they actually called the event off, and they allowed the cameras to continue streaming, and a who's who of free surfers paddled out there and got the swell of, the decade essentially, and produced films from it and cover shots and A+ clips and all this sort of stuff. So he's like, that, and the WSL has kind of continued down that path, which is actually shying away from golden opportunities because they misunderstand the core product that significantly. And so with this El Nino winter upon us, is it possible that the final straw breaks? That it's just like they're going to continue to double down on running in mediocre surf and wave pools or whatever, and there's pumping surf around the globe that other people are fully kind of embracing and diving into and exploiting. And it's only a matter of time until maybe Red Bull or Vans runs the Pipe Masters in an event like that or whatever, where it's just clear as day. For the core surfers, it's already clear as day that is, what we want. And the WSL is kind of not delivering the product that we want. But beyond the core surfers, for people who are just paying attention casually, for them to realize, like, what is this? This is a clown show, like, just give us we'll go to YouTube and we'll watch Nathan Florence instead and Cole Rothman's channel.
Well, I tell you what a great, not even a theory, but just a great, I guess, thesis or something to go after. But what Scott said about, was this the beginning of the end? Was Thundercloud, because we think of Thundercloud and we go, oh, what an insane documentary and what insane waves, and all of that stuff's true, and it was mind-blowing, but we never look at it through the prism of, this is where it broke
10 years on.
I think that's really fascinating, and I think it's great insight from Scott, and I think it would be great to go, hey, here's our hypothesis. Is this where it broke? And then interview a bunch of people, interview Jordy, interview whoever, interview Graham Stapleberg. I don't know who, you just interview, get a bunch of takes on it. And you could create a really cool, however long, let's say it's 12 minutes long, whatever. I don't know, maybe it's 45 minutes long. Interview all the guys on site, interview Dave Wassel, interview all the guys that were there, like, get some really good insight, and then look at what's happened with the WSL since then, and maybe, I just think that's fascinating. And I've never looked at it through that prism of, is that the moment, that we can look back now with hindsight and go, that was the moment. Can you believe that they didn't run an event in pumping Cloudbreak because guys didn't have boards? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Can you believe that you're a professional surfer on that level and you did not bring boards, for that swell? But
how was it all the other guys brought big boards that aren't on the tour? They all knew it was happening.
Exactly. Well, I think that the tour surfers probably realized that the WSL or the ASP at the time wouldn't run the event if it got that big. So there was no point in bringing boards that big, And so then the ASP looks, hey, all of our athletes aren't even prepared for this, so we're just going to not run the event. But I think what's important.
Who won the tour that year? I wonder who was the world champion that year.
2012 would have been Joel Parkinson.
Did Joel surf
after
that day? Did Joel Padlock surf that day?
I don't think so. But I think what's important to look at in that model is, like, you need to run events at waves that, if they do get the swell of a decade, it can handle. So, like, if Sakurema is on the tour and it gets 10 foot, it can't handle. and then it's a no-go, so
Let's go find a
build.
smaller spot.
Yeah, exactly. You got to build into the locations that on its day of days, you can hold a contest. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like that's a super simple thing. Like that would be almost the first rule that you would pick is we
Yeah.
want the day of days. But
Yeah.
the idea that a lot of the spots on tour can't handle a massive swell
Well,
because
I don't know
it's
about, let's go through the list. I think most of them probably can. Pipe, yes.
yes, Sunset, yes.
Sunset, yes. Bells, yes. We've seen
Margaret,
that.
Margaret, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so
JB,
maybe they do.
JB's off, but Chopu's an interesting one. Chopu can get to a place where you can only ski it. You can only tow it. But
Yeah. No, you're right. So maybe they do actually. But
there are
but
like Brazil's an obvious no-go.
but you want to run the event on those days is the point. That's what you want to be aiming for.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the event, a lot of the locations can handle that day of days, but the thing is, we had the day of days of cloud break and it didn't go. And so where's the fly in the ointment here? Like what happened?
Well, there has to be a desire for the organization to run it on that day of days and be building for that.
Yeah.
But we do have an American Wave. As we're discussing competition, there is a long overdue wave of Americans that are going to be joining the tour, Scott.
Yes, we've had a lot of qualifications occur.
The local come ups. We're at the final CS event of the year. And so qualifications are happening. The event is not over. So there's still three spots on the men's side that are yet to be kind of solidified because they're in the round of 16. And if the people who are kind of on that bubble might get bumped out if somebody below them makes it into the finals or whatever. But on the men's side, the current qualifiers are, again, there's 10 spots available. The current 7 that have already earned enough points to qualify are Cole Hausman from San Clemente, Jacob Wilcox from Western Australia, Frederico Moraes from Portugal is back on tour. Crosby Colapinto, younger brother of Griffin Colapinto from San Clemente, is on. Eli Hanneman is on from Maui, and Imai Kalani DeVault also from Maui. And then your local boy, Jake Marshall, is qualified. Yes.
Super psyched on Jake making it. That's cool, man.
And on the women's side, I think Sawyer Lindblad, is she San Clemente?
I don't know.
I think she's San Clemente as well. So she's on tour as well. So big come up for the Americans. Long overdue. Well,
it's interesting, right? I mean, I look at this and it's pretty exciting I'm excited about Cole. I'm obviously excited about Jake Marshall. I'm super excited about Crosby Colapinto. And I don't know why. Well, I do know why. Obviously, it's Griffin's brother. And I think there's going to be, I don't know. What are your thoughts on all of this? I'm still kind of taking it all in. I'm super psyched on Eli Hanneman.
Me too. I love Eli. My thoughts on it are every time I think of any of those guys other than Eli Hanneman, I think about them surfing kind of waist to shoulder high beach break. And I cannot wrap my head around how that translates in a heat against Gabriel Medina at, let's say, Margaret River. You know what I mean? It's like, I still think of Cole Hausman, as good of a surfer as he is. I still think of him as being kids surfing QS quality waves. And it's like, well, I don't know. What does that mean at pipe against John? Like, it just feels like they're two different levels. And so the question mark is, I want to see if he can level up to that world stage, or maybe he has surfed pipe a bunch and I'm just unaware of it, or Teahupo'o or whatever it is. But I don't know how those QS skills translate to, I mean, big surf, if they run in big surf and against Gabriel Medina's of the world,
I'm glad you said big surf, because that's what sticks out to me, is that these guys have a better chance, I think, in big surf where it's more nature involved, where it's not boiled down to good luck against Gabe and 3 to 4 foot trestles.
Great point. Great point.
And so, and especially when I look at Cole and Jake Marshall, I know that those guys perform well when Jake Marshall's had great heats when it's been big.
True.
And, Sunset Beach. And Eli Hanneman's the one guy where I'm like, okay, I could see Eli leveling up to John Florence's level. Like, you know what I mean? Killing it in 3-footers, but being incredible in 10 to 15 foot pipe or choker or cloud this year.
And John has seen him coming for a decade.
Yeah.
John's been watching him since he was young, and they were on the same team actually at that time at Hurley. And John was like, oh, this kid's doing full rotation airs on small waves and then paddling out at pipe and earning his spot in that lineup. And won the US Open, in dribbly surf, but his biggest clips are giant caverns at pipe and backdoor.
Now, the only thing that sort of goes against him doing well is a look at past results from Hawaiians such as Baron Mamiya and other guys that, like, you and I have huge hopes, and we still do for Baron Mamiya. I don't think he's reached his peak yet, but I guess what I'm saying is that next level up to the CT is a big step.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're not, going against number 212 from Spain.
Mm-hmm.
You're going up against Gabe and John and Ethan and all of these guys that they're comfortable on tour, man. And if it's your first year now, I know Eli, a lot of these guys have surfed in and out of these events as either wild cards or have been on tour before. So that helps. But it's fun it'll be fun to watch it play out, right? That's part of the fun of watching the tour play out, is seeing how these guys develop and seeing who the guy is that rises to the occasion.
Yeah. Well, the bottom 3 that are still kind of on the bubble in that top 10 are Cade Madsen, also San Clemente boy, David Silva, Brazilian, who we've seen before on tour, Samuel Pupo, and then just below the cut line, but still in contention in terms of math, Mateus Hurdy, Jackson Baker, Michael Rodriguez, and Marco Mignot. Mateus Hurdy is somebody who I'm looking at as like, man, that's an all-star surfer and phenomenal kind of ability, but also phenomenal style. Like, he would be a great addition to tour. He's upset tour surfers as a wild card in the event, I think in Mexico last year when Jack Robinson won, or 2 years ago. So I would love to see him get right above that cut line and take one of those spots from maybe a David Silva, who we've already seen on tour.
You know what I'd like to see somebody break down is guys that were on tour that fell off tour, that came back on tour, and how their results. I think of Andy Irons as a great example. Here's a guy who fell off tour and won 3 world titles. And there are other guys, and I think of a lot of, for some reason, there's always like Brazilians that like fall off tour and then get back on tour, and then fall off tour and then get back on. Like, they have like a real tenacity. And some of those guys, then when they got back on tour, did really well. I don't think Adriano ever fell off tour. I could be wrong there, but Adriano was always on tour. But there's guys that fell off tour and then went on to be incredible top 5 surfers.
Yeah, so there's not
break that down.
There's not a lot though. Like, there are certainly the Miguel Pupos and Jadson Andre who fall off. They come back and maybe they place well in a event, but they don't come back and sit in the top 5.
Well, Miguel Pupo.
Ethan Ewing.
Yeah, there we go. See, I'd like to see somebody really break that down for us.
Yeah, Ethan has done that just recently. On the women's side, the current, so only 5 surfers make it down to the CT. India Robinson's in first. She's qualified. Sally Fitzgibbons is back to do exactly what you just said. Sawyer Lindblad. Oh, Alyssa Spencer's the other Californian who's back in, or who's qualified. Isabella Nichols is in that 5th spot. And then just below the line, but still in contention mathematically, are Luana Silva, Bronte Macaulay, Vahini Fierro, Nadia Estarabi, and Ellie Harrison.
Well, a lot of names. I have no idea who they are, but to me, this is the season of one person and one person only for the women, and that's Caitlin Simmers. I think this is the season where Caitlin Simmers as she's got a whole season under her belt, and I don't know, man. I think that, and I also feel like, is Steph even on tour? No, right? Steph's off. Who knows? Like, I just feel like
Steph's
there's an
on.
old guard that's gone. I feel like they're either gone or they're going to be gone. Like, I even think Carissa might be gone.
That's
I know
interesting.
they're on tour, but I mean, I think they might retire is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You're laughing because I don't know where Princess Diana of surfing, Steph Gilmore.
Well, Steph just finished barely outside the top 5, I thought. Let me look.
So you don't even know either. I love it. but I do think it's all about Caitlin Simmers, and there's a bunch, and I'm a huge
Steph's number 6. Steph was just outside the top 5.
I mean, how many years have they been on tour? I mean, she's got 7 or 8 world titles. She must have been on tour 10 years already. I mean, at some point, especially if you're a female, and I hate to sound patriarchal, but they do have body clocks, and a lot of them want to have children, and I don't blame them. And when you're 30 years old, it's time to start thinking about that.
Yeah, it's traditionally been a shorter career, certainly for the female side.
Yeah.
I was just going to kind of slightly segue into another story or two, but it feels like a bathroom time for you. Am I right or am I wrong?
Oh my God. Jeez.
We're 45 minutes in. I've not seen you hold it this long for a long time.
I really don't have to go, but I'm going to take advantage of this moment.
You don't have to. Okay.
And welcome back.
You mentioned Teahupo'o, and did you see the controversy that's happening there as it relates to the Olympics?
Well, I do have a story about that, but no, please enlighten me.
Well, about them building a permanent tower?
No, that's not what my story is about something else, but so go ahead. What's happening there?
So Matahi Drole 48 hours ago actually posted a video and a link to change.org through his bio line. And basically I'll just read from I'll give you an overview first. They want to build an aluminum structure for the judges tower for the Olympics. Yep. And put actual cement footings into the reef to build the structure. So it's a $5 million structure. Currently what's I know. Currently what's being used is a wooden structure that is not permanent, and that's been there for a long time, and that's been adequate.
One they've been using for like 2 decades.
Yeah. And it's been adequate, but there's limitations to it in that there's no bathrooms. It can only hold, I feel like they said 10 to 20 people or 10 to 15 people or something at a time. There's no air conditioning. So it's just not a super hospitable environment for those who are in the tower. But of course,
I've been a judge on that thing.
Was it inhospitable?
I mean, it's just a portable judging tower, it's scaffolding with some planks on it and a table and some chairs.
But you're in paradise.
Yeah, I mean, but it's certainly not. I don't think they want to pan to the cameras don't want to pan to the judging scaffolding and just show some dude like peeing off the side.
That's what the Olympics are worried about, essentially. So they want to build this aluminum structure that can house 40 people. It'll have bathrooms. It'll have air conditioning. They're going to run piping like out to, for all of what you would need. So ultimately, what they said on the change.org petition is, we, the undersigned residents and visitors of Teahupo'o, ask the government and the county to renounce the new arbitration tower for the 2024 Olympics, the drilling of the platform, the underwater pipelines, and propose the use of the natural or the usual wooden tower for the Olympics. Matahi did a fantastic job on Instagram just explaining it's too much of a risk. Like, if you did all of that, there is a risk that it disrupts and even permanently ruins the natural aquatic ecosystem of the reef, which is pristine and is the main reason that everybody's coming here in the first place. So it's not worth risking that, which is irreversible. And it could also ruin the wave itself. You know what I mean? So we don't know what the damage will be, but we do know it will disrupt the ecosystem, and therefore the risk is not worth it for you to hold a 3-day event.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting, isn't it? I just think about these pipes that they're laying. I guess they're just temporary pipes that are going to have to be used for wastewater management.
Maybe.
And electronics.
Maybe. I signed the change.org petition yesterday, and when I did, they had 29,000 signatures of their 35,000 goal. I just looked at it now, and it looks like they updated the goal to 50,000, and they're at 48,000. So
Okay.
lots of support in just 3 days. This went up on October 16th. So I would encourage you, get on there, sign it, go through Matahi's Instagram account, and you could link there, but it seems like kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why they couldn't just do it in the current tower, and they probably can. They probably, like you
They
said,
for
just
sure
don't
can.
want.
They've done every event for 20 years in the tower, and it's just a matter of some IOC person going, what, wait, what, how do I visit there? And if I want to visit there, what, they don't want it to look third world, for lack of a better phrase. I'm not saying it's third world. It's just a judging scaffolding. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think this is a no-brainer. Get on that change.org petition, sign it. They're not asking for money or anything like that. They're just asking for signatures. And the local residents have already been protesting in the streets, like doing.
Oh, is that what the protest was about that I saw? Because it was in French and I couldn't read the signs. I didn't know what was happening there.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay, cool.
So what was your story
You're
about
laughing
Chopu?
at my inability to speak French.
Yeah, just run it through Google Translate.
Dude, I
I'm
can
just
barely
kidding.
speak English. Are you kidding me? Holy mackerel. By the way, real quick, you mentioned change.org. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So if you have females in your life, make sure they get screened for breast cancer. A good dear friend of mine, sadly, his wife has had breast cancer come back, and so it's sort of at the top of my mind right now that if do yourself a favor and get screened. It's October Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Early detection is key.
Yeah. So my
Um,
other story about the Olympics is Stab put out this thing a couple of weeks ago about this floating athlete village. So at every Olympics, they build out an athlete village, and it has all of the infrastructure for the athletes to all stay in one place. Now, of course, with Teahupo'o and the surfing, this is a unique thing. So the Olympics have brought this massive French flagged, basically it's a super deluxe yacht slash ship. It's 103 cabins. It carries 230 passengers. It has 3,000 tons of freight, 38 staterooms, 28 of them deluxe or super deluxe, 31 suites, and one presidential suite. I wonder who's staying in that, plus 5 dormitories. Now, the guest facilities include a dining room, a lounge, 2 conference rooms, 3 bars, a panoramic sky bar, a gym, an outdoor pool, a boutique, a library, a spa, a tattoo studio of all things, and 8 guest decks. And this is the athlete village, according to the Olympic Committee and what Stab is reporting. Now, Ryan Miller chimed in on the comments section and said, this is all great except for one glaring oversight, and that is that France, Brazil, the USA, and Australia all have team houses already set up for the land. Now, he's unsure about the other countries, but what do you think of this massive floating, basically, it's not even a yacht, this is a ship.
It's a cruise ship.
The athlete village is going to be located.
I love the idea. I mean, I feel like a reality show should take place at the same time while they're on there. But does the Olympics mandate that you have to stay in the athlete village?
No, they
Yeah,
don't. They highly recommend it for basically team bonding and full immersion in the Olympic experience.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense that they want to make sure that everybody has space who's coming to compete in the Olympics. But yeah, I see the surfers, like Bad Boy said, they already have their houses that they're used to doing. They come and do this every single year. And so they're going to stick with the plan that they normally do. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, and I think, how many athletes are really competing at Teahupo'o, from the International Surfing Association? How many nation states? They mentioned, we know France, Brazil, USA, Australia, for sure Japan. There's probably another 6 max,
Maybe. Yeah.
and so of those, that's 3 surfers each.
Yeah.
You're looking at 18 surfers. I'm sure they can squeeze into one of the other rooms or whatever. So anyway, pretty interesting that this massive ship is going to supposedly be the athlete village. Now, if I was staying on land, I would want to go visit the ship and hang out and maybe get a tattoo or whatever.
If I was
By
part
the
of
way,
the
the one hideous tattoo that I do have on my body, I got in Tahiti, and it's not pretty. Like, if I showed it to you, you'd be like, "What's that?" You've probably seen it. You're like, "What is that thing?" I don't even know.
I haven't. Where
It
is it
was
on your
supposed to be
body?
a gecko, but it's turned into sort of like a rusted anchor at this point.
Where on your body is it?
Right here on my back shoulder, right here. It's a
Okay.
small little thing, and I highly recommend, don't ever get a tattoo. Well, actually, I highly recommend don't listen to my advice on this, but I have one.
What how old were you?
I was 25,
Mm.
and there was alcohol involved.
Yep, my wife has 2, and she regrets both of them as well. And she was young when she got them too. So my body is a temple, Scott. It is completely. Why would you put a sticker on a Ferrari? Is the question. You
Yeah,
know
you
what I'm
might
saying?
consider
Like,
shaving if you're so proud of everything.
you might consider what I put in my body as well before committing to it. So yeah, if I was part of the American support crew, like obviously I'm not going to be surfing the Olympics, but if they're like, no, come along and support, I'd be like, sweet. You guys enjoy your house. I'm going to go stay on that cruise ship over there, that world-class cruise ship. I'm going to go hang there by myself, have some privacy. And it sounds pretty good to me, actually.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there'll be somebody will do a little tour of this ship for us, and we'll see some content on social media or YouTube or whatever, and we'll get a peek at it. And maybe NBC will even do something like that. Now, I'm excited. I got to say, I'm excited not only for the Olympics, but I'm sort of excited for the WCT season. Like, as much as we try to direct them into the proper path moving forward, I do like surfing competition. I do enjoy being a consumer of it. It has exciting moments. Of course, there's a lot of downtime and we sit here and it's low hanging fruit for us and frankly, it's kind of our jobs to provide constructive criticism. But I am looking forward to it. And tell me, are you looking forward to, say, the Pipeline Championship, whatever they call it? What do they call it? The Belong Pipeline Pro or something?
Yeah, Pipe Pro.
The Pipe Pro in
Totally.
January.
Yeah, totally. I'm always looking forward to Pipe during and not during events. But yeah, I'm totally looking forward to it. I just want them to run in good surf with the best surfers in the world. That's it.
Yeah.
But speaking of the best surfers in the world, the Olympics and a world champ, I mentioned last week, I think right when we were ending the show, that Elelo is off Billabong. Did we have that conversation?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Did you see the actual story of why?
No, what happened? Fill me in.
Breach of contract on his part. So he signed a deal in addition to his relationship with Billabong, which still had 3 years on it. It was going to expire in 2025, which I misspoke about last week. I thought that it was up for renegotiation and they just opted not to re-up. But I guess he's back in September, so a month ago, he signed with a retailer in Brazil called Decathlon. They're a sporting goods store. They claim to be the largest sporting goods store in the world, Decathlon. But the partnership reportedly didn't sit well with Billabong's new owners at the Authentic Brands Group, because the store sells an array of non-Billabong product. They sell Billabong, but they sell all of the competing brands as well. And so if you go through the fine-tooth details of his contract with Billabong, this is in violation of it. And they're looking just for an opportunity to cut costs, essentially, under the new ownership. And so they deemed it a breach of contract and took this opportunity to remove themselves from any obligation to pay Elelo for the remainder of his 3-year deal, which amounts to $1.5 million.
Man, that hurts. And I don't know. I'm not a lawyer and I don't have the contract in front of me. I'm assuming that he's obviously specialty retail, i.e. surf shops have competing brands, Billabong and all the other brands, and that's okay. But when you sign with this company, I guess, yeah, I don't know. It sounds to me like they were just looking for an out and they got one. And I think if I was Elelo, I'd be contacting a lawyer and finding that's a lot of money, 1.5 million to leave on the table.
Well, it's also a misstep of his management, right? Like he clearly has business managers.
Exactly.
And they are the ones who probably brokered the decathlon deal.
Yeah.
And so I'd be looking at them and go, hey, you guys got me paid $300,000 from decathlon. That's great. However, it cost me $1.5 million. I'm down, you know?
Yeah,
so,
that is definitely a big issue. Yeah,
yeah,
that's somebody screwed up and we need to point some fingers, damn it.
It's a misstep. But I have a feeling that Elelo will make it up on Instagram posts.
It'll be interesting, Elo's actually an interesting guy to watch. Like if we were to do like a pre-season sort of report, which we will soon perhaps. Elelo to me strikes me as one. Remember how Derek Hind used to do like this thing where it would be either he's going up or he's going down or he's saying sable regarding his outlook for the coming season. Elelo seems to me to be one that you could say might be moving downward in a downward trend.
Here's my prediction. I'm going to give it to you right now.
Okay, right.
Downward trend on the CT, upward trend on his influencer status.
And that's interesting. How does that translate, I guess, fiscally?
On Instagram, getting paid per post. So in following Jack Freestone and Alana Blanchard's thing, who was, by the way, only following the Kardashians thing, is they're getting paid $15,000 per post based on their number of followers. Elelo has as many followers, maybe more. And so you partner with, today you're doing a shoot for a new perfume. Tomorrow you're doing a shoot with Ford trucks. The next day you're doing a shoot with some supplement brand, and you just get paid as you go. And it's no long-term contracts at all. It's strictly, I mean, those Kardashian girls make millions of dollars per post, actually.
Yeah.
And so I think that is Elo's, I mean, that's what he signaled towards all
Who do they
along.
get paid by? Do they get paid by Meta or do they get paid by the company?
The company is sponsoring you to promote their product. Meta is not paying you. So that is, I think, what he has been signaling to with the glistening ab photos and his workout routines and all of that. I could see Elelo going down that path of like, here's the shoes I wear when I'm working out. Here's, whatever. And then designing some sort of a workout program, and you buy the app and then you follow Elo's workouts and he's the best surfer in the world that's not on tour at a certain point. And why wouldn't he do that? I mean, honestly, if you could write your own ticket, live the life you want to live, go surf the best waves in the world, the tour feels like a burden at that point.
But does he need the CT to have relevance for his Instagram?
Hell no.
So at some point he just becomes like a DJ guy. Like he could easily just he could just turn into like some like DJ guy.
He's playing Burning Man
and even get more followers and just not even surf anymore and just be Elelo.
I mean, he's got the perfect name for it. He's got the perfect look for it. Just Elelo, drop the Ferrera. He's got the gold chains already. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I absolutely think that is a light bulb's going to go off for him, and he'll be like, "What the hell?" First of all, WSL pays crap. Like, the money I was making was from Billabong, not from the WSL. And now I'm not making it from Billabong anymore. I'm not beholden to any of this. I can write my own ticket. Like, moving on. He's already got a world champ. He's got a championship.
Gold medal.
Got a gold medal. Boom.
That's good. You're good. Yeah. Time to just turn on the Elelo machine and just freaking go full bore Elelo. And And you and I are going to be lost from that, but that's fine because he's going to build up this whole South American and probably beyond mojo around his social media.
It's follow Fisher, Paul Fisher's Instagram. That's what he's done, you know? I mean, the DJ example. And the idea of like, he had to work with a manager to get this decathlon deal for a retailer. It's kind of like, does Elelo shop at Decathlon? Probably not, you know, but he does use.
And is he locked into, he can only talk about decathlon? That screws up.
Exactly.
That's a shitty deal. He needs to talk to his managers.
So that kind of old traditional model doesn't make a lot of sense in this new era. And these surfers, I think, at that level where they have millions of followers, are underselling and undervaluing themselves. He can get some ab oil company to pay him at what Decathlon paid him for 4 posts. You know what I mean?
By the way, I mean, we're on social media, you and I, and right now we'll be on YouTube, I imagine. And I've got my Trees Wax hoodie on. I've got my Trees Wax hoodie. Beanie. Thank you. Beanie. Yeah. Sorry. Right. Take 2. I've got my Trees Wax beanie on, and you know what? I'm getting paid in wax.
I just found mine because when he gave it to
us, I did too. I found this morning.
Yeah, I found mine a couple days ago, and I'm like, God, this is a really nice beanie. This is the nicest beanie I own, actually.
This is actually the nicest beanie I own. It's super nice. Let me show you.
It's very nice, and that recycled cork tag is genius.
It is so soft and warm.
I don't think he even sells those beanies. That's the thing. You got to be in the know with Trees Wax to get that beanie.
Christian, I love my Trees Wax beanie and my Trees Wax performance-based organic eco wax. Thank you.
Petroleum free, baby.
Oh yeah.
Gotta love that. So anyways, Elelo, we'll see what happens.
You got a great prediction. He's going to go bigger than ever, but he will drop off of the core enthusiast surfer radar.
Yep. I mean, look, he could probably look over to Jamie O'Brien and like, what's Jamie earning? And I bet Jamie's earning way more than most people that are on the CT tour, and just go, I'm bigger than Jamie. I could do what he's doing and more, you know?
I don't know. Is he bigger than Jamie? The thing that's cool about Jamie is that he's got pipeline in his backyard. Like he's attached to surf, whether he likes it or not. You know, he's got Waimea Bay that he goes, you know, that he surfs the river.
How did you pronounce that, by the way?
Huh?
How did you pronounce that surf spot?
Did I say Waimea?
I got a note from a listener that I've been saying it wrong all along and leading people down the wrong.
Don't ever hold. Can we just have a caveat right now before every episode that we are going to butcher names, we are going to mispronounce stuff. That's just the nature of who we are, and it's frankly part of our charm.
I think so too, actually, but we also have an obligation to not lead people down the wrong path.
This is true. I would agree with this.
I'm not convinced you said it wrong. I just couldn't quite hear.
Waimea Bay. Waimea Bay. Waimea.
Incorrect. Okay. It's not Waimea.
Oh,
it's just Waimea.
Waimea. That's pretty true. Yeah. Waimea Bay. I know that now. Maybe this guy will help us, or Shukin might be able to help us. But I've been told that you pronounce every vowel in the Hawaiian language. So every vowel, there's no silent vowels. Every vowel has a not an accent, but you say it. So it's Y-E-Me-E-A. Whatever. So anyway, yeah, I just butchered it pretty bad. But I'd like to hear from a Hawaiian language specialist.
Somebody chime in from now. For me personally, up until that person chimes in, because what I felt like an expert already did chime in, and they said, why Maya?
I'm pretty sure that you pronounce every single vowel. And I want to say, like, somebody told me that, like,
I know.
Somebody
you told me that, and I've heard that too. Yeah. Well, we'll figure this out. We'll get back to you next week. One other thing that I want to touch on that we did touch on last week, but I want to go slightly deeper. I mentioned that the World Longboard Championships ended at Malibu, and we were like, we didn't really watch. I went back and watched the final, the men's final. Absolutely gorgeous surfing. Like Kai Salis, his surfing.
I just looked it up.
Tell me.
No silent vowels in the Hawaiian language.
But get a pronunciation of Waimea.
Well, the A makes a short ah sound. So
Wah.
wah, and the I makes an E sound, but short, like in the word tip. So it'd be ah, E. Why, why? No, it'd be
Wah.
wah, E. I don't know, something like wah, E is the beginning.
They now do chopu.
That's a whole nother language, dude.
I just want to give love to Kai Salis, by the way.
Okay, yes, sorry, I
Kai,
interrupted our love for Kai because
so
he's an
Kai,
incredible
Kai,
surfer.
Kai, I gotta admit, I haven't followed his career, but Stab Magazine, kudos to them. They actually did a proper interview with Kai. Guy's 42 years old. He's been on tour for 2 decades, and he won his first longboard title. I watched that final. I watched the surfing, and I'm like, that's it, man. That is as good as you could ride those waves. That is beautiful. I mean, nose rides, hang tens. It was just gorgeous stuff.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to bring him up though is because he shapes his own boards. Is Kai the first surfer to win a title on a shaped board since on a self-shaped board since the 70s?
Or it'd be the 80s. It'd probably be Mark
Mark
Richards
Richards.
in the 80s,
So
80.
Mark Richards, yeah. I mean, is Kai the first since then?
Since Mark Richards. I think he probably is. I can't think of, I mean, there's guys that made their own boards, but they didn't win world titles. Like Glenn Winton comes to mind.
But you'd have to think on the longboard side too.
Oh, on the longboard side, well, Joel doesn't shape, and Rusty Kealana doesn't shape, and Bonga doesn't shape. I mean, they didn't shape their boards when they, when they
Right.
won titles. So
Kai may,
probably
yeah, I think Kai may be. So
at
Kai
least Stu
Salis.
shapes Taylor Jensen's boards. Yeah, Kai, that's awesome. You know what? On paper, I mean, just off the top of our heads here, as we think through it, I think he's probably since 81, the first world champion on a self-shaped board. And that's a pretty big deal. And oh, by the way, excellent um, conversation starter when you're at a party.
Well, yeah, Stab Magazine didn't mention that detail. I mean, Stab interviewed him and they said like Kai, built his board and his board for Connie, the second place finisher. So he built the two boards that were in the final, his and
Wow,
his, yeah,
that's pretty cool.
competitors. Which definitely had to be the first time that's happened. But I was just thinking kind of additionally, I'm like, man, he has to be the first in a long time. So shout out to Kai Salis. I forget, I didn't even, he makes, if you want to
Yeah,
look
what's
up
his
his
label?
website,
Kai
it's Kai
Salis.
Salis, just Salis surfboards.
Salis surfboards. That's so
Salis
cool.
with 2 L's, by the way.
Yeah. How many consonants, how many vowels?
Kai Salis longboardco.com is his website. If you want to go check that out, the boards look great, of course. And then they did ask him about the judging criteria, though, which I appreciated. And he said, well, the criteria change has been the biggest thing on the longboard tour. That took a while to change, but the judges had to adapt. I think it's perfect now. It's where longboarding should be. It's at the most functional point it's ever been. The single fins are molding people surfing to hanging 10 in the pocket and keeping everything smooth. Before, there were longboard champs crowned on a longboard that never even touched the nose. End quote. So,
Yeah, well, that's cool. I'm looking at the Salis boards right now. I'm about to order one.
I love the logo too.
I know that he did a great job with the logo for sure.
So,
Yeah, well, that's cool. I'm stoked to hear that.
yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about while we're talking about judging,
yeah,
one of my favorite series that Stab does is The Best Surfing That I've Ever Seen, where they interview a filmer or a filmmaker about the best surfing that they've ever seen. They've committed their life to filming surfing, basically. And so what was the one session, right?
yeah,
And in this most recent episode, they interviewed Dave Malcolm. And Dave Malcolm offers up an
I saw this. It was awesome.
He offers a session that honestly I'm like, you have to have seen better surfing than that. But then I watched the episode and it all made sense why he chose it.
Yeah.
And ultimately what he chose was a session. They were making a film and it was in 2012. And he took Brendan Gibbons, Dylan Graves, and Andrew Doheny to the Caribbean. And they ended up scoring super, super rippable, punchy beach break in beautiful turquoise water, A-frame peaks. Everybody's ripping, but Andrew Doheny was the surfer who he identified as doing the best surfing of that session. And the context that he creates is he had low expectations for Andrew Doheny. At that time, people were doing big single maneuvers, tricks, essentially. And so he's like, Droid, I feel like doesn't even really do airs. He just does these kind of big turns, and it's a cool layback turn that he's doing, but what the heck? Like, it's not the right guy for the trip. But he got talked into it, and then Droid pulls his boards out of his bag, and they're like hand-shaped, alternative high performance short boards, but looking very crude,
Yeah.
And Dave Malcolm's like, God, this kid, like, I need a professional if I want to bag some clips. And the Caribbean's kind of fickle. And so we're only going to get like small windows of opportunity. And if he's like trying to figure out his board, I'm screwed, right?
Yeah.
And then Droid goes out and starts doing very unconventional turns, like these explosive, just blowtail sliding around, maybe riding into a 360 or whatever, but just blowout turns. And what was interesting about it was Dave couldn't even appreciate what Droid was doing. Even while watching it, Dave was like, the fuck? Like, his context and his expectation didn't allow him to see how incredible the surfing was. And he went up and talked to one of the other filmers and Jerry's like, oh my God, Droid is like going berserk. Like, this is insane. Brendan Gibbons, the other surfer, Dylan Graves, they all validate. They're like, oh my God, Droid's having a banner session. Then Dave goes back and watches the footage and goes, oh my God, Droid is like, these turns I've never even seen these things before. This is incredible, right? So the reason I bring it up is, as it relates to judging, is that it was an example of Dave had set kind of an expectation, and it was a bias, a preconceived bias. And what was happening in front of his eyes, he couldn't even appreciate it because he didn't even have the open-mindedness to appreciate it. And so I think that factors heavily into judging, where we set a criteria, you want to surf to this criteria, and that almost, it built in, eliminates inventiveness and creativity and all of these things. And so when Dane Reynolds comes out and does that massive turn at Haleiwa, it's like, it doesn't fit inside of the box of the criteria. If you're basing the criteria only off of things that you've seen in the past, you're automatically not allowing innovation to happen. You know what I mean? And so I think that, and it's also like counterintuitive to surfing itself. It should be a creative expression. And so I thought that example with Droid was kind of the perfect example of breaking the boundaries and the importance of needing to factor that into the judging criteria in advance,
Yeah, it was a really interesting one, as far as those series go, and I've seen a few of them. It was an interesting one, and I enjoyed it. I did appreciate Dave's ability to kind of have some, to look back and look inward and kind of go, oh, maybe I was wrong here. And, so it was really cool. And Droid was ripping. It was fun to watch.
I think that's the other thing is, it reminded me, like, I'm all for having crappy sessions. Like, what Droid was doing there was, he did build a crude surfboard, and that board had so many limitations. But for what he was trying to do, he had built a board that just served that purpose, probably. And he was going out there and he was trying to do a very specific thing. And that board wouldn't translate to anybody else. but he knows his own surfing and he knows what he's trying to get. And so he did this, and his surfing went to that level. And I presume that he has refined those exact shapes and designs to make them more user friendly beyond just doing that one style of turn or bottom turn or whatever he was going for. But I like the idea of being that tapped in and pushing the boundaries in just this one area that hard. And maybe you're going to bog 9 times out of 10, and maybe you're going to bog 10 times out of 10, but you're trying to achieve this goal. And when you unlock that goal, it then kind of opens it up the doors for everybody else.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think you stated it, you make a great point, and I highly recommend people go and check it out. It's a really good little piece that stabbed it.
And again, highlights the limits of the judging criteria.
Yeah. Look, judging can be more often than not controversial.
It's inherently flawed. The structure of it's inherently flawed. There needs to be a way to allow for what we've never seen before.
Yeah. Judging usually creates parameters that are too narrow for creativity to find its space.
Creativity needs to be valued.
Look at you, bro, bringing it. That's why people listen to this show, because it's shit like that.
And that's why, well, hey, shout out to Stab. Look, we referenced them with the Kai Salis article. You mentioned them with the Olympic floating dorm room situation, and then with this too. So they're doing.
I mean, look, to be frank, Stab's my first initial go-to when I'm scouring for stuff for the show, and I do now go to Surfer magazine, and of course Tracks. There's been some really cool stuff in Tracks of the actual print regarding busting down the door years with I think they broke out a bunch of old images and did interviews with Sean and Rabbit and Mark Richards and stuff, which that's always pulls on my heartstrings, Tracks magazine.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Legacy Media making a comeback. Legacy Surf Media making a comeback.
Is that what we're going to call it? A comeback?
The water's warm. Come back in. We want you. We need you. Well, I'm going to give a final kind of note as a Duke. This is a real kind of sad. I mean, it's certainly a sad, but also just a weird story. Shane Dorian is down in TJ getting stem cells injected into his shoulders, trying to expedite recovery for some nagging injuries that he's had, but kind of experimental thing with his stem cells and having to go to Mexico to do it. But he brought a buddy along with him, a Kona buddy named Dozer Dave. And Dozer Dave actually passed away on this trip. Did you see this story?
I did see this story. Yeah, that is horrible.
So the reason I bring it up is not only as a condolence, but Dozer Dave had a podcast. And so Dozer Dave has floated around on my periphery as a podcaster for years because he seemed to be, I mean, he's certainly good buddies with Shane, and but seemed to be good buddies with everybody. And so he started this podcast years ago, probably 8 years ago, called Doze Knows. And he would interview some surfers, but also other high performers. He just seemed to be connected into a lot of very, very cool people, and stopped producing the podcast in the last 2 years, but I just kind of kept track of him because of his adjacency to everybody important. And so when he popped up on Shane Dorian's Instagram feed down in TJ, I was like, oh, sick. I guess they're down there together. And but he had cardiac arrest. He had been unhealthy, apparently, from friends and family who have spoken about this. He had been kind of, his health had been declining for years. And so passed away very sadly. But I just wanted to read a comment off of his Apple podcast reviews. Somebody said, quote, "Every once in a while, you come across a uniquely special human being. Dozer Dave maxes out on life, and you hear it when you listen to him dive deep with all of his guests. From surfing to football, he shreds it all. He is all Kona and loves to share its wonders with you. You are a better one. or you are a better one after diving in, end quote. And that review is not written post-mortem. That review is written in 2020. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty great little recap of Dozer Dave.
Well, thanks for bringing that to the light and to the listeners here, because rest in peace, rest in power,
And for
Dave.
and for
Yeah,
anybody who wants to reconnect with Dave, Doze Knows podcast is still active and well on all your platforms. So go check that out if you'd like to hear directly from him too.
that'd be a great idea. Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, look, David, it's been a great show. Until next week, adios and aloha.